Woodworking with lasers, actual woodworking, actual thick cuts. Lots of possibilities here. Check it out. All right, so woodwork. If you're new to the channel, woodworker, I love working with all kinds of hardwoods, beautiful woods, and I've been doing lasers the last couple of years, and now there's a machine that allows you to cut pretty thick stuff and do some really cool things. And so this video will walk through these projects right here, some possibilities, little bit of an ad on this new machine, the xTool P3. Wow, so much, so intuitive, so easy, but really want to showcase some possibilities. And so yeah, a little bit of an ad just showing this machine. Yes, xTool did send it to me in exchange for making some videos. However, I do a lot of tutorials, tips, and tricks. So there's even just some general woodworking tips in here if you're not even interested in lasers, but of course a lot more on the applications for lasers. And even if you have a smaller machine or don't have the P3, a lot of this will translate, but this one cuts thick, cuts clean, it's awesome. So let's jump on in. So to start off, let's show a dramatic big cherry hardwood American cherry panel. This is 3/4 of an inch thick and it is cutting through no problem. And so pops out just fine. We'll get into all kinds of considerations with different wood types, but just here, it's a bigger panel. I could go even bigger if I wanted. It's even cutting through those glue lines, and we got ourselves a giant panel. Now you could do this, thinking of a wall plaque, wall signs, all kinds of different things. Big, thick, awesome. Not a lot of soot there, very minimal cleanup. Pretty impressive right from the get-go. Now, of course, this is great for cutting. You can do engraving. I'm not going to do a lot of engraving for this video or showing that. It's mostly cutting and woodworking applications, but we can engrave this really big plaque. And so the speed on this upgraded machine is awesome. It's impressive. You sand it off, throw a little spray lacquer down, and you are set. So this is just a quick little tease at some of the projects. Got a lot more like these other plaques. So in my first video, my big review, I showed how it could cut different woods. Here's some poplar. We'll explore some different wood types it can do. So we can do the engraving, we can do the cutting. But if you were in a wood shop, you can just cut out your own blanks, or you could just, provide different, pieces for signs. Look at that thick stock. Now, again, that's poplar. It's not a hardwood, but still pretty impressive for 3/4 inch material. I did do, this is about 5/8 of an inch. This is some Claro walnut. You can just barely in one pass get 3/4 of an inch. There's a little bit that you'll have to clean off, but pretty impressive. So walnut, some other woods, definitely test out different things, but there's that 3/4 inch. Here's that 5/8 inch. You can see my thumb, the size. That Claro walnut, right? So some nice pieces there. There's a lot of possibilities with this machine. Usually lasers can't cut that thick, or it just burns the sides and they're just like not really salvageable. But here you can see, did a great job with this wood. And so this is just a couple ideas. We got a lot of other projects here, other woodworking considerations as well. But yeah, this one I just think was awesome. This was this huge panel, and you can see just how thick it is, just clean. You can see some of those glue lines because this is a laminated panel. But yeah, scale, go ahead, sure. You can see my hand for size. Bear Core, this is actually my brother-in-law's book, and I have to give him a shout out. He's a fellow woodworker, turns pens, has, sponsored me and lots of different things early in my woodworking career. So give him a little shout out there. Pretty fun. Awesome. But check out his book. Great Audible, great listening. So woodworking applications, obviously big signs and plaques are great, but let's explore some other ones. So I've used a lot of templates, in my time as a woodworker, where I make my own templates and then I cut out other materials. You could use this machine to make templates. That is a great thing, or other jigs. Here you can see some of the boards I've made, the charcuterie boards, cutting boards, where you can make your own template, some unique sizes, and then you just use other traditional woodworking tools. Or you can just cut the whole board out in one pass with a laser, depending on the wood material. But I do want to explore the idea of templates a little bit more. I think that's a great woodworking application. I've used them here for these router trays and router bowls, and you buy these, you know, 1/2 inch MDF ones, or like these ones. These are some really fun bowls that I made, router bowls, a couple years ago. And unfortunately, there were, you know, I wasted a lot of great stock. I since have made updates in my videos talking about how you can eliminate that. But you could just take some beautiful wood like this, and you can make different layers. So you could have the two-tone and you cut it out and you're not wasting all that interior wood. Cut a clean pass. Here's some of the router trays I've made where I really show that, but you don't have to worry about jigsaws or other tools. So there's a lot of applications with templates, and also, or just cutting out smaller pieces, or like those little handholds in the bottom. You can cut some really unique things for cutting boards and servingware. That's one idea. I don't really know, you know, if I'm going to cut things out with, you know, like for a chessboard, you know, with the glue lines. That might be an issue, but there's ideas. What about box joints or dovetail joints? I think you could really explore that. David Picciuto makes something, dude is amazing. He has a whole video showing how he made full-on furniture just using this P3. Some ideas. Okay, so this part right here is going to be a little bit of Wood 101. So this is kind of like woodworker hat, talking about wood and species. You can use the timestamps to skip on ahead, but it is actually a really important consideration. So this machine, it's incredible, right? And it can cut through 3/4 inch cherry, 3/4 pine, easy, one pass, not a problem. I did do some test cuts and I showed that in my previous videos, trying to cut through 3/4 walnut. Some woods, they're just more dense. And so there's this thing called the Jenka hardness scale. You can look up online which woods are harder, right? Now, primarily, I work with hardwoods. So hardwoods are trees that have leaves that fall, deciduous trees. So that's your maple, that's your cherry, your walnut, also exotics like purple heart, yellow heart, padauk, wenge, ebony, lots of cool stuff. I do have a whole video just on Wood 101. You can check that out if you want to really do a deeper dive. A lot of folks who are just in the laser world, they probably just know the softwoods. So this is stuff you can find at your box store. So that would be pine. You know, you could do cedar, you could do fir. I definitely did some cedar ornaments in here and some cedar pieces. This one right here was made all out of pine. But then we also have some hardwoods. And so for this, you know, endeavor, if you're gonna be cutting wood on here, just need to consider these pretty woods with the natural colors, that solid wood. You're not gonna be able to cut the thickest stuff. Now, I'm a woodworker. I love working with all these big slabs and all kinds of different things. If you want the really, really thick one, even with multiple passes, it's just gonna get too charred, and that's really not the best application. For that, you're gonna do it with hand tools, right? You're gonna use a bandsaw, a scroll saw, or a CNC machine. However, there is still a ton that you can do with this, where really I feel like 1/2 inch, you know, to 5/8 inch is kind of the sweet spot. You'll test it out and we'll jump into some more applications of what woods work really well. But you'll do some test cuts you'll go through. But one big consideration that you might have experienced if you work with any lasers, if you ever buy plywood, especially if you buy plywood from a box store, like Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, something like that, that plywood has all those layers of glue, right? And most of those are exterior based glues, which are really hard. In woodworking, the glue is actually harder than the wood itself. And so if you've ever been cutting through a panel of a plywood and it didn't cut all the way through and you pull it out and you're like, oh man, that's because of the glue, right? The glue is harder, and so in different places you're gonna get some issues. Same thing is to take into consideration with this wood. So I had a couple big panels that were glued up, it went through, and then once I hit one of those glue lines, it didn't cut through. So that's something to take into consideration. Also, if you're planning to do plywood, I easily cut some really nice birch 1/2 inch plywood, one pass, super easy with this machine. You could probably go thicker, but because of that glue, it's gonna be a challenge. And if you wanna help yourself even more, as much as I like to go to the big box store and get the just big sheets that are super cheap, that's usually exterior grade glue. You know, it's like, you know, anyway. Wood, glue, it's harder, and that's just gonna be an impact for you. So for this, definitely gonna do some test cuts, but as far as, you know, picking your wood, and if you wanna do a big panel, because this is a big machine, I wanna do the pass-through, you do need, I don't want you to go ahead and make a giant, beautiful panel and then run it through the conveyor and do a big piece and it doesn't cut all the way through. Now there are some tricks if it doesn't quite cut all the way through, how to help you out without having to re-laser it. We'll get into that with a tool like a drum sander. But that's just something to consider. Don't be too ambitious. Do lots of test cuts. test cuts first. That's something to consider. Also, some folks always ask, where do you find the hardwoods? Now, a lot of you are probably familiar with the thin plywood and sources for that. When it comes to hardwoods, that solid wood, you're not gonna just go to Home Depot unless you're getting pine or those softwoods. So these primo woods, finding a local lumber yard is great. There's also woodworking stores like Rockler and Woodcraft. They always have a pretty good selection, so you can definitely check that out. In my video, Wood 101, I talk about a lot of other sources, and in the comments, I think there's like 100 different folks across the country, even the world, saying where they buy their hardwood. This one in particular is a hardwood, an online hardwood supplier that they supply wood for like scroll saws, and I've used it in my another video on the P2 laser where I was cutting out hardwood. These thinner stock, great pieces. They have different really nice ones. That's a great source as well. Ocooch, O-C-O-O-C-H. I'll link it down below. That's another great source if you're wanting to experiment with some different hardwoods. And then these big giant panels that you saw, this was all from repurposed furniture. So if you find, go to Goodwill, go to a thrift store, and find some old furniture, if it's hardwood, you can repurpose those panels. So that's something to consider. We'll get into that again. So a little bit more on the Wood 101. So here you can see that drum sander. I have these panels, right? So I got these panels from an old piece of furniture, beautiful cherry, but I'm removing the varnish off of it using the drum sander. So I'm not trying to, buy another tool, but if you're gonna do this, here's this old cabinet, beautiful cherry, and we're going ahead. Actually, Chad, the brother-in-law who did the book, this is actually his. He donated it to the cause again. Check out his book. Anyway, great source for wood is old furniture. Right, here is some pine. This is just, from Home Depot, and I'm cutting it out in one pass, right? One pass is cutting through. However, like I shared, some woods, there's some consideration. So it might be glue lines, but some pine might have a lot of these different inclusions, right? Didn't cut all the way through. Sometimes with wood, there's the heartwood, which is the center of the tree, and then there's the sapwood. Well, pine has, there's some science in this, and you could really get into it. These fibers, it didn't cut all the way through. Exactly. So I could have just done another pass, but sometimes you pull it out and you forget to do it. So here I'm running it through the drum sander with a little tape, and then, okay, peel off the tape so they didn't fall through. And then you can see on the back end, let's see, just knock them out. But some still. So one thing to consider before, you go out and buy, hundreds of dollars of pine, which probably could get you a lot because it's not as expensive. You notice these little lines? Right, these are different, parts of the wood, and so some are cutting through, some aren't. That's clearly not glue, so that's just something to explore, but the drum sander is a workaround that you could do. All right, here's a big panel of cherry. Beautiful. I can cut out cutting boards. I can cut out puzzle pieces. I did do some half-inch, plywood. It's not solid wood, and I talked about the considerations with plywood, but this is another great option to do thicker stuff, some thicker stock, so you're not doing a bunch of little 1/8-inch sheets that are laminated up like traditionally you would do with underpowered lasers. So anyway, puzzles. I think puzzles are a great application. Real wood, or you could do plywood a lot. We're going to explore this a lot more in future videos, but you can see we got some dino puzzles, some rocket puzzles, all kinds of different things. My son really had a lot of fun helping with this and design. There's a quick little hack that we'll talk about. We'll have a full video on puzzles later and more tips and tricks. But sometimes, different settings are off. It usually cuts pretty clean. But all that char on the inside, I can just put it in a vibratory tumbler like this. And this is little walnut shells, and it's just going to go ahead and vibrate. You can see it's going to turn it on, and it's just going to rotate that through, and it's going to kind of slightly abrade it. You can obviously experiment with different types of abrasives. I explore this a lot in other videos I have, but upcoming video on puzzles, I'll talk about this a lot more, some more tips and tricks. So this is just going to make it a little bit better. It's going to be a little bit softer, rounded over a bit if, kids are going to be using these puzzles, and then you can paint them or do whatever you want to do. I did this with solid hardwood as well, but puzzles. They're super fun. Yeah, he's 5. He was stoked about this. Making a puzzle for his cousin, doing it. Sanding. There is still going to be some sanding. I love using the Surf Prep sander because they have these different foam inserts. So it's not going to, like, you know, be too aggressive. It just softly rounds over the corners. There's just so many tips and tricks that I'll show in these videos that come up, the greater in depth just on specific projects. But this is a great tool that I use with a lot of my woodworking projects. You can do spray paint. There's some other, you know, more kid safe, you know, if you're kind of consider that if a kid's going to put it in their mouth. Stains, there's some other food safe or, you know, more safe ones that we'll explore in future videos. But this just gives you an idea. This P3 tool can cut this thick wood, this solid wood. We can make really cool puzzles, right? Some of them, this is just that half-inch plywood. Still is great. You could do this out of poplar. You could do this out of pine. You could do it. I did a lot with cherry. You saw me use a lot of that cherry, which was, you know, anywhere 3/4 of an inch. Some of them I made it a little bit thinner, so it wasn't as thick and chunky. But lots of possibilities there. Here's a cool puzzle. Look at all these different little pieces. We'll talk about some files and sources for this later in the video. But just a quick idea, an application of making solid wood puzzles, and you don't have to mess with a, you know, a bandsaw or a scroll saw and, you know, copying a template over and doing that and the sanding in between, because these small pieces, right, you don't have to do, it's just going to be clean cut with the laser, and then you could do those other tricks. This is another idea. These are little hand teethers. You can make these rattles as well, but like little kids, you know, as they're teething, this is solid cherry. So this is perfectly safe for a kid to be gnawing on, chewing on. If you wanted to, you could round over the corners with a router. These are ones I made about 6, 7 years ago for my nephews, and I just used a router table and then I rounded over. That's also cherry, but great idea. Another little application. Okay, we saw this earlier doing the charcuterie board, the serving board. This right here, I actually don't know what kind of species of wood this is. Some type of hardwood. I know, it's hard. I couldn't identify. It's not walnut, I can tell you that. This one was about 5/8 of an inch, which honestly for charcuterie boards, serving boards, it doesn't need to be super thick for it. But I was able to cut out just this whole panel right here. Awesome, great, in one go. I've made a lot of these. I've made a ton of these boards throughout the years, and most of them are usually around 5/8 of an inch, 3/4 top. So I think that's a great application, is making serving boards like this. Now you could also make bigger personalized boards. So here I have that big panel of that cherry wood, and I made a Bigfoot cheese board. I made a sunflower cheese board where I did the engraving first, and the machine can engrave it, and then it can cut it out. And then I'm using a little round over, then I'll do some sanding. Again, I'm not going to make this video too long. I'll have a video that talks a lot more about some tips and tricks for cutting boards. You can check my old videos if you want them right now, but expect another video on these coming up soon. Just showing you can make really cool cutting boards or serving boards, cheese boards, right here on the laser. And so one tool, cut it all out. I did round it over, and you can see I used that sander again, which is really nice because it's kind of got that foam, just kind of eased over the edges a bit. And then I did all the treatment that you would want for a food grade board. And again, there are some steps you definitely need to take if you're going to make cutting boards. You can check some of my other cutting board videos to learn more about that. But let's talk a little bit more about this P3. There's still more projects. Don't worry, got more projects coming. But I do want to give a quick shout out, right? This video, it is about woodworking applications, but it's because of this machine. This machine has so many new upgrades to the other ones, right? So it's bigger. It also, you could add the IR, you know, module head later. For the full video, check my other videos to learn more about it. But this auto, you know, creation system where it just auto senses everything, it's just so much faster, so much more efficient. Maybe you're just a woodworker and you haven't done, not just a woodworker, woodworkers are amazing, but this could expand to more business opportunities, small business options, lots of other accessories. So this has so much. It's got the fire safety. Lasers have come so far, and the R&D in this one is just insane. So I do have 2 other videos already on this P3, including a giant nutcracker using this auto conveyor to make big over-the-top giant signs, engraving. So you can check those other videos to learn more about this machine. Wasn't going to go too deep into all the tech, but definitely check it out. It's pretty cool. Okay, some more wood. This is a panel of end grain. This little plaid end grain panel I made, and I resawed it on my bandsaw, and then I smoothed it out. So right now it's about, I don't know, 3/16 of an inch thick. End grain is a lot harder. It's a lot harder to cut through, so you're not going to be able to do big panels, but here's a quick application. Also, this view that you see right now, this is the P3 view on the computer. So there's built-in cameras there. You can also notice that I have been using the L lens. That's just for a little bit more powerful. The stock one M, it cuts really well. The L is for, deeper cuts, and it just does a little bit more. So I primarily use the L lens throughout this one. But here's that end grain. I sanded it, did all this stuff, little spray lacquer. I think these turned out great. I love making ornaments. I think ornaments are such a great project. Here you can see some different ones I've made in the past, but some possibilities with all the different colors. Here's just a great piece of cedar. This one's, I don't know, it's about 3/16 of an inch thick. You could go thicker with cedar, no problem. But for an ornament, you don't need it too thick. So I engraved it, and then I cut it, and then these are great to customize really quick and easy. So you might be coming at this not for making money, but with an investment like this, you can make money, right? There's a lot of sales potential and so many applications, and I try and showcase that in a lot of my videos. But certainly, if you're just going to do this as a hobby and make gifts, this is awesome. This can do so much. It can do state outlines. I mean, there's just loads and loads of possibilities. So yeah, end grain or laminated wood is definitely a possibility. But those cedar ones, right? Maybe it's even close. I don't know. Maybe up to half an inch thick, 3/16. I think that's about right. Anyway. So really quick, I want to share a resource that I share in a lot of my videos, especially ones with lasers. Lots of files out there, lots of different designs for the different projects, and yes, of course, for woodworking as well. Well, this is a place called Creative Fabrica. So let's say I want to find Bigfoot SVG, like you saw in that cutting board. I want to do some cool different shapes, can make a cutting board out of it or outline. I can. Unlimited downloads, right? So it's a subscription. So if I just do, I don't know, like $4 a month, there's different discounts, you can get unlimited downloads. Now, normally I used to go to Etsy, right? And so I can go to Etsy and I can find these for $9.733, but that's one file. Whereas Creative Fabrica, for the cost of $4 for a month, you get unlimited downloads. Now I use these in a lot of my videos. They also have fonts, all kinds of really great fonts, really creative applications. And so the puzzles that you saw, some of the files were from here, lots of other really good stuff. Now, if you use my link down below, it is an affiliate link. You'll get 10 free downloads. Check it out, at least get 10 free. At least just check it out and get 10 free files. Explore the possibilities, but it really is a great source for files, design, and ideas. So many more projects to come. This is a quick tease, some of the things that you can make, some applications. Expect more videos, greater detail on all of these projects and much more. But yeah, woodworking with a laser. The P3 is awesome. And there you have it, but a taste. So many possibilities. Now, if this video added value, consider subscribing. This is primarily a woodworking channel. However, there have been a lot of different machines the past couple years that have been showcasing a lot more on woodwork. So lots of tips and tricks. Really excited for this machine to enable me to do even more woodwork in my videos. So expect a lot more content with this P3, as well as other machines and traditional woodwork. Again, if you want to learn more about like the cutting board process or these others, I have upcoming videos really getting into the tips and tricks. And really, like, that's what this channel started as, and we'll be doing a lot more tips and tricks videos, and it's kind of weaved in. Even if it's a product review video, I'll always include different tutorials and tips and tricks as well. So again, consider subscribing. Now, if you're interested in purchasing this laser, it is amazing, it is expensive, it is quite the investment, but you can see my other videos. I think this one's amazing. Definitely do your research, check the link. You can check this link. This is our affiliate link. If you end up making a purchase, we do get a small commission. It supports my family. It's why I'm able to make these videos. But definitely do your research and check it out. I've worked with a lot of lasers and a lot of new products have come out. They are just so many upgrades to this that it's insane. So definitely look into it. Now again, xTool did send me this machine in exchange for making videos. So this is not a sponsored video per se, but they did send me this video. They sent me this machine. So I did not pay for it with my own money. So, take that with a grain of salt, or, factor that into your decision. But I do really, really love xTool. A lot of companies choose to work, reach out, want to work with me, and I work exclusively with xTool for a lot of reasons. They just have the best machines. They have the best intuitive software. It's really simple. Really, really simple, and the innovations all the time. So their R&D department, like 700, 800 folks, just working on new improvements, new accessories, making everything easier. And then that software, it's just so easy and intuitive, and it's constantly getting upgraded. And they've really expanded their US-based customer support. Just this last summer, opened up a US headquarters for a lot more support. So anyway, you can check my other videos and see why the hype is real. xTool is awesome. But anyway, a little bit of an ad there at the end. Awesome products, awesome possibilities. Stay tuned for more. What else do you want to see with this P3? What other woodworking type applications would you hope to see? Well, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Take care, and until next time.